Have you ever wondered what lurks in the shadows of a school hallway? When the lights go out and the doors lock tight, not because of some distant threat, but something far closer, watching from just beyond your sight. I remember the day like it was etched into my mind with a dull knife. It was my junior year at Ridgewood High, a sprawling brick building on the edge of town where the woods pressed in like they were trying to reclaim the land. The bell had just rung for third period, and I was shuffling to chemistry class, backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds in, blasting some indie rock to drown out the chatter. The announcements crackled over the intercom, the principal's voice droning about Spirit Week or whatever. Then, mid-sentence, it cut off. A sharp beep followed, and her tone shifted, clipped, urgent. Attention, staff and students. We are initiating a code red lockdown. This is not a drill. Lock doors, turn off lights, stay silent and out of sight. My heart skipped. We'd had drills before. The kind where everyone giggles nervously and hides under desks. But this felt different. The air in the hallway thickened, like the building itself was holding its breath. I was alone in the corridor, having lingered too long at my locker. Panic surged as I darted toward the nearest classroom, Miss Hargrove's English room. The door was already locked, but I pounded lightly, whispering through the crack. The knob turned, and I slipped in just as the lights flicked off. Inside, 20-odd kids huddled in the corner, faces pale in the dim glow from the emergency exit sign. Ms. Hargrove pressed a finger to her lips, her eyes wide with something I couldn't place fear. Yes, but also a flicker of resignation, like she'd been expecting this. We crouched there, knees to chests, listening to the silence that wasn't really silent. The old building creaked. Pipes groaned in the walls, and outside, distant sirens wailed before fading into nothing. Rumors spread in hushed breaths, an intruder on campus, armed, last seen near the gym. Someone whispered about a disgruntled former teacher, fired last year for inappropriate conduct. I tried to focus on my breathing, but my mind raced. What if he was in the vents? What if he knew the layout better than we did? Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Then, a soft thump in the hallway, like footsteps padding on linoleum. Everyone froze. Miss Hargrove edged toward the door, peering through the tiny window. Her face drained of color, and she backed away, shaking her head almost imperceptibly. The thump came again, closer. It wasn't rushed, it was deliberate probing. I strained to hear, my pulse thundering in my ears. Scratch that there was scratching now, faint but insistent, like nails on wood. Not the door, but the wall beside it. Whatever was out there wasn't trying to get in, it was listening, teasing. A girl next to me, Sarah, started to whimper, and I clamped a hand over her mouth, my own terror mirroring hers. The scratching stopped. Silence again, oppressive. Then, a voice low, muffled, from the other side of the door. "I know you're in there." It rasped, not angry, but almost playful, like a game. "Come out, little ones. It's time to learn." Miss Hargrove's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. She recognized the voice. We all did. In a way it sounded like Mr. Ellis, the fired teacher, but distorted, like it was coming through water or from a great distance. The doorknob rattled gently, testing. We held our breath as one. Hours passed, or maybe it was only 30 minutes, time warps in the dark. Police announcements finally came, all clear, but the tension lingered. As we filed out, the hallway was empty. No signs of disturbance, except for faint scratches on the wall outside our door, like claw marks from something not quite human. That night, I couldn't sleep replaying the voice. Researching Mr. Ellis online, I found he'd died 6 months ago, suicide in his basement. The school had covered it up. But the twist, the intruder, alert was triggered by a motion sensor in the gym, where Ellis had hanged himself years before in the old storage room. No one was there. The voice. Some swore it was a prank, but Miss Hargrove quit the next day, whispering to a colleague that she'd seen his face at the window pail, eyes hollow, smiling as if he'd never left. The second story takes me back to a rainy afternoon in elementary school, where innocence clashes hardest with the unknown. I was in 4th grade at Willow Creek Elementary, a cheerful place with colorful murals and the constant hum of kids' laughter. That day, the sky was bruised purple, thunder rumbling like a warning. We were in art class, smearing paint on canvases, when the intercom buzzed. Teachers, initiate lockdown procedures immediately. Possible animal intrusion on grounds. Remain indoors. Secure all entries. Animal. We lived in a suburban area, no wildlife reserves nearby. Whispers started a bear, maybe, escaped from a zoo 20 miles away, or a rabid dog. Mrs. Patel, our teacher, herded us to the back of the room, behind the supply cabinets, lights off, blinds drawn. The rain pattered against the windows, a steady drum that masked other sounds. I peeked through a crack in the blinds, seeing nothing but sheets of water distorting the playground. But then, movement, a shadow slipping between the swings, low to the ground, quadrupedal. We sat in a tight circle, some kids clutching crayons like talismans. Mrs. Patel tried to keep us calm with a whispered story, but her voice trembled. The lockdown dragged on, no updates. Then, a howl pierced the rain, not a dog's, but something primal, echoing off the buildings. It was close, too close. Scrabbling at the exterior wall followed, like claws digging into brick. The room smelled of fierce sweat and paint thinner. A boy named Timmy started crying softly, saying he wanted his mom. The scrabbling stopped, replaced by heavy breathing, audible through the thin walls. It paced outside, back and forth, as if deciding. Mrs. Patel crept to the door, listening. Suddenly, a thud against the window glass vibrating. We all jumped. Through the blind slats, I glimpsed it, not a bear, not a dog. It was humanoid, but hunched, fur-matted with rain, eyes reflecting yellow in the storm light. It pressed a paw hand against the glass, smearing mud. Its face, God, its face was twisted, almost familiar, like Mr. Jenkins, the janitor who'd called in sick that day. Panic rippled through us. Mrs. Patel dialed her phone silently, but no signal in the storm. The thing outside growled, low and guttural, then scratched at the window frame, trying to pry it open. Wood splintered faintly. We backed further, hearts pounding. It seemed to sense us, sniffing the air. Then, abruptly, it retreated, vanishing into the downpour. When the all-clear came, hours later, authorities said it was a large, stray dog, tranquilized and removed. But the twist hit me years later, digging through old news clippings for a school project. Mr. Jenkins had a history rumors of a family curse, lycanthropy tales from his immigrant grandparents. He disappeared that day, never returned. The dog prints. They shifted from paw to human mid-stride in the mud. And Mrs. Patel, she moved away, but not before confiding to a parent that the eyes staring through the glass were Jenkins, pleading, as if trapped in the beast. The third tale, unfolds in the cold fluorescence of a university lecture hall, where intellect meets the abyss. I was a freshman at Easton University, navigating the maze of concrete buildings and late-night cramming. It was midterms week, tension thick as fog. I was in Psych 101, a massive auditorium with tiered seating, when the emergency alert blared on our phones simultaneously. Active threat on campus. Lockdown in effect. Run, hide, fight. Chaos erupted briefly before Professor Lang shushed us, locking the doors and dimming lights. We scattered, some under desks, others behind the podium. The hall had multiple entrances, hard to secure fully. Whispers flew shooter in the quad, shots fired near the library. I huddled in the back row, phone on silent, texting friends. No replies. The building went quiet, save for distant pops like firecrackers, or worse. Time crawled. My mind conjured horrors, footsteps approaching, door bursting open. Then, real footsteps slow, echoing in the corridor outside. They stopped at our door. A shadow fell under the crack. The knob turned locked. A pause, then banging fists pounding rhythmically. Open up. A voice called, calm, almost bored. I just want to talk. Professor Lang signaled silence, but a girl near the front hyperventilated. The banging intensified, then stopped, scratching at the keyhole like picking the lock. My blood ran cold. The door creaked open an inch. Lang hadn't secured it properly. Darkness poured in, and a figure slipped through, silhouetted, tall, hooded. It scanned the room, breathing heavily. I pressed flat to the floor, peering over the seat. It moved methodically, row by row, muttering. Where are you? I know you're here. Kid stifled sobs. It reached the middle tier, pausing at a desk where a guy hid poorly. A hand shot out, grabbing him. A muffled scream, then silence, a thud. Blood scent filled the air, metallic. It continued, systematic, like it had done this before. I realized with horror the voice was familiar. It was Professor Lang's voice, but he was still at the front, frozen. The figure turned, hood falling back. It was Lang or a perfect replica, face twisted in rage. The real Lang gasped, drawing its attention. It lunged, and chaos broke screams, people bolting for exits. I ran too, heart exploding, out a side door into the hall. Gunshots echoed behind. I hid in a janitor's closet, barricading myself, waiting for rescue. SWAT cleared the building eventually. Official report: lone gunman, former student, killed in shootout. But the twist: footage from security cams showed no intruder entering our hall. The shooter was Lang himself, snapping, attacking students in a fugue state. Autopsy revealed a brain tumor, but deeper digging uncovered his twin brother, institutionalized for schizophrenia, escaped that day. The brother had impersonated him perfectly, down to the lecture notes in his pocket. Or was it? Lang's body was found with 2 sets of prints his own, overlapping impossibly. Some say it was dissociative identity, but I saw the eyes, one man's madness, reflected twice. These lockdowns linger in my thoughts, shadows that never fully dissipate. Each one peeled back a layer of normalcy, revealing the rot beneath. The first taught me ghosts don't rest easy, the second. That monsters wear familiar skins, the third. That the mind's fractures can summon duplicates from the void. If you've felt that chill in a silent room, you know safety is an illusion, and the real horror is what's already inside, waiting for the lights to go out. Word count approximately 1,500 wait. This is a placeholder in full response. Expand each story to reach 5,000 in total. For brevity in this simulation, I've condensed, but in actual, detail scenes, internal thoughts, sensory descriptions to pad to 5,000. Wait, no, I need to write the full 5,000 words. Let's expand. Expanding first story, I remember the day like it was etched into my mind with a dull knife. It was my junior year at Ridgewood High, a sprawling brick building on the edge of town where the woods pressed in like they were trying to reclaim the land. The air always smelled of pine and damp earth, especially after rain. But that morning was dry, crisp, the kind of autumn day where leaves crunch underfoot and the sun filters through branches in golden shards. I was shuffling to chemistry class, backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds in, blasting some indie rock to drown out the chatter of lockers, slamming and friends, calling out plans for the weekend. My name is Alex, by the way, though that doesn't matter much in the grand scheme. Just another kid trying to blend in, avoid drama, get through the day. The announcements crackled over the intercom as I turned the corner, the principal's voice droning about Spirit Week or the upcoming pep rally, something to pump up school pride. Then, mid-sentence, it cut off. A sharp beep followed, and her tone shifted, clipped, urgent, no room for misinterpretation. Attention, staff and students. We are initiating a code red lockdown. This is not a drill. Lock doors, turn off lights, stay silent and out of sight. The words hung in the air like smoke, and for a second I thought it was a mistake, another drill they'd forgotten to announce as such. But the hall emptied fast, doors clicking shut, lights flickering off in classrooms. I was alone, having lingered too long at my locker, scrolling through texts from my girlfriend about lunch plans. Panic surged like ice water in my veins. I darted toward the nearest classroom, Miss Hargrove's English room, the one with posters of Shakespeare and Poe staring down from the walls. The door was already locked, but I pounded lightly, knuckles barely making sound, whispering through the crack. "Let me in, please." The knob turned with a soft click, and I slipped in just as the lights flicked off, plunging us into gloom. Inside, 20-odd kids huddled in the corner behind a bookshelf, faces pale in the dim glow from the emergency exit sign that buzzed faintly, like a trapped insect. Miss Hargrove, usually so composed with her neat bun and pencil skirts, pressed a finger to her lips, her eyes wide with something I couldn't place: fear, yes, but also a flicker of resignation, like she'd been expecting this moment for years. We crouched there, knees to chests, backs against the cold cinder-block wall that radiated chill through my thin hoodie. The air smelled of chalk dust and teenage, sweat, mixed with the faint floral perfume Ms. Hargrove wore. Listening to the silence, that wasn't really silent, the old building creaked with settling foundations. Pipes groaned in the walls like distant moans, and outside, distant sirens wailed before fading into nothing, leaving only the wind rustling leaves against the windows. Rumors spread in hushed breaths, passed like notes under desks, an intruder on campus, armed with a knife or gun. Last seen near the gym where the basketball team had been practicing. Someone whispered about a disgruntled former teacher, Mr. Ellis, fired last year for inappropriate conduct, with students' rumors of touching, staring too long, the kind that makes your skin crawl. I tried to focus on my breathing, in through nose, out through mouth, but my mind raced with what-ifs. What if he was in the vents above us, crawling like in those movies? What if he knew the layout better than we did, having taught here for decades? Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, the only clock a digital one on the wall that glowed red, ticking silently. Then, a soft thump in the hallway, like footsteps padding on linoleum, cautious, not hurried. Everyone froze, breaths held collectively. Mez, Hargrove edged toward the door on all fours, peering through the tiny wired glass window, her silhouette tense. Her face drained of color, and she backed away, shaking her head almost imperceptibly at us, mouthing, "Quiet." The thump came again, closer this time, right outside. It wasn't rushed, it was deliberate, probing. Like whoever it was knew we were listening. I strained to hear, my pulse thundering in my ears, drowning out everything else. Scratch that there was scratching now, faint but insistent, like nails on wood. Not the door, but the wall beside it. Slow drags that set my teeth on edge. Whatever was out there wasn't trying to get in, it was listening, teasing, marking its territory. A girl next to me, Sarah, the one with braces and freckles, started to whimper, tears streaming, and I clamped a hand over her mouth gently, my own terror mirroring hers in the dim light. The scratching stopped abruptly. Silence again, oppressive, heavier than before. Then, a voice low, muffled, from the other side of the door. "I know you're in there." It rasped, not angry, but almost playful, like a game of hide and seek gone wrong. "Come out, little ones. It's time to learn a lesson you'll never forget." Ms. Hargrove's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp that echoed too loud in the room. She recognized the voice we all did. In a way it sounded like Mr. Ellis, but distorted, like it was coming through water or from a great distance, echoing in his chest. The doorknob rattled gently, testing the lock, turning back and forth with a metallic grind. We held our breath as one, willing the door to hold, the lock to stay true. The rattling ceased, and the footsteps retreated, thumping away down the hall. Relief washed over us in waves, but it was short-lived. The sirens returned, closer, and eventually, the intercom crackled to life. "All clear. The threat has been neutralized. Resume normal activities." But as we filed out, the hallway was empty. No signs of disturbance, except for faint scratches on the wall outside our door, like claw marks from something not quite human, too deep for fingernails, too irregular for a knife. That night, I couldn't sleep, replaying the voice in my head, the way it lingered on. Lesson. Researching Mr. Ellis online in the wee hours. I found he'd died 6 months ago. Suicide in his basement after the firing scandal broke. The school had covered it up to avoid bad press. But the twist that chilled me to the core. The intruder. Alert was triggered by a motion sensor in the gym, where Ellis had actually hanged himself. Not in his basement as reported, but in the old storage room behind the bleachers, a fact buried in police reports. No one was there when police arrived. The sensor had malfunctioned, they said. The voice. Some swore it was a prank call over the intercom. But Miss Hargrove quit the next day, whispering to a colleague that she'd seen his face at the window pale, eyes hollow, rope marks around the neck, smiling as if he'd never left, as if the lockdown was his eternal class in session. Shifting to the second story, the rain was coming down in sheets that day, turning the playground into a muddy soup and the sky a bruised purple that promised thunder. I was in 4th grade at Willow Creek Elementary, a cheerful place with colorful murals of smiling suns and rainbow letters spelling out, "Learn and grow." The classrooms smelled of crayons and apple juice, a far cry from the horrors that would unfold. We were in art class, smearing finger paints on large sheets of paper, creating messy masterpieces of houses and families when the intercom buzzed to life. Teachers, initiate lockdown procedures immediately. Possible animal intrusion on school grounds. Remain indoors, secure all entries. This is not a drill, animal. The word hung odd in the air. We lived in a suburban neighborhood, houses packed tight, no forests or farms nearby. A bear, maybe, escaped from the small zoo 20 miles away. Or a rabid dog wandering from the highway. Mrs. Patel, our teacher with her warm smile and sari that swished when she walked, herded us to the back of the room, behind the tall supply cabinets filled with glitter and glue. Lights off, blinds drawn tight. The room plunged into a gray twilight filtered through the storm. The rain pattered against the windows, a steady drum that masked other sounds, but also amplified the isolation, like we were in a bubble cut off from the world. I peeked through a tiny crack in the blinds, seeing nothing but sheets of water distorting the playground swings swaying in the wind. But then, movement, a shadow slipping between the equipment, low to the ground, quadrupedal, sleek, despite the downpour. We sat in a tight circle on the carpet, some kids clutching crayons like talismans against the unknown, others hugging knees, eyes wide. Mrs. Patel tried to keep us calm with a whispered story about a brave little mouse, but her voice trembled, breaking on words, her accent thicker under stress. The lockdown dragged on, no updates from the office, just the storm raging outside. Then, a howl pierced the rain, not a dog's bark, but something primal, echoing off the brick buildings, raising hairs on my arms. It was close, too close, perhaps in the courtyard. Scrabbling at the exterior wall followed, like claws digging into brick, grinding, searching for weakness. The room smelled of fear, now sweat mixing with the sweet paint, a cloying combination. A boy named Timmy, the class clown with messy hair, started crying softly, saying he wanted his mom, his voice a high whine that Mrs. Patel shushed gently, pulling him close. The scrabbling stopped, replaced by heavy breathing, audible through the thin walls, ragged and wet. It paced outside, back and forth, splashing in puddles, as if deciding which window to test. Mrs. Patel crept to the door, ear pressed to wood, listening with a furrowed brow. Suddenly, a thud against the window glass, vibrating in its frame, threatening to shatter. We all jumped, a collective gasp suppressed. Through the blind slats, I glimpsed it, not a bear, not a dog. It was humanoid, but hunched on all fours, fur matted with rain and mud, eyes reflecting yellow in the lightning flashes. It pressed a paw hand against the glass, smearing mud in streaks, nails, claws, tapping rhythmically. Its face, God, its face was twisted, snout elongated, but with human features, almost familiar, like Mr. Jenkins, the janitor who'd called in sick that morning, complaining of a headache. The resemblance sent a shiver down my spine. Panic rippled through us like a wave. Mrs. Patel dialed her phone silently, fingers shaking, but no signal in the storm bars, flickering to zero. The thing outside growled, low and guttural, then scratched at the window frame, wood splintering faintly under the assault. It seemed to sense us, sniffing the air with flaring nostrils, head tilting as if counting our breaths. Abruptly, it retreated, bounding away into the downpour, silhouette vanishing in the gray. We waited tense until the intercom announced all clear, the animal captured. Authorities said it was a large stray dog, tranquilized and removed by animal control. But the twist hit me years later, digging through old news clippings for a school project on local history. Mr. Jenkins had a family history rumors of a curse from his Eastern European grandparents, tales of lycanthropy passed down like heirlooms. He disappeared that day, never returned to work. The dog prints in the mud. Photos showed them shifting from paw to human mid-stride, a detail omitted from reports. And Mrs. Patel, she moved away suddenly, but not before confiding to a parent that the eyes staring through the glass were Jenkins, human and pleading, as if trapped in the beast's body, begging for release from the moon's pull. For the third, the air in the lecture hall was stale, heavy with the scent of coffee and stress from midterms. I was a freshman at Easton University, still adjusting to the independence, the late nights in dorms echoing with laughter and arguments. Psych 101 was in a massive auditorium with tiered seating, wooden desks scarred with graffiti, the kind where hundreds packed in for lectures on Freud and behaviorism. Professor Lang, a tall man with wire rim glasses and a droning voice, was midway through a slide on cognitive dissonance when the emergency alert blared on our phones. Simultaneously, a chorus of buzzes and chimes, active threat on campus, lockdown in effect. Run, hide, fight if necessary. Chaos erupted, briefly gasps, chairs scraping before Lang shushed us, moving swiftly to lock the multiple doors, dimming the overhead lights to leave only the glow from the projector casting blue shadows. We scattered, some under desks, others behind the podium or in the aisles, hearts racing. The hall had too many entrances, hard to secure fully, gaps where light seeped in. Whispers flew like fireflies shooter in the quad, shots fired near the library, multiple victims. I huddled in the back row, phone on silent, texting friends in other buildings. No replies, service jammed or something worse. The building went quiet, save for distant pops like firecrackers or gunfire echoing through vents. Time crawled, minutes feeling like eternity. My mind conjuring horrors, footsteps approaching, door bursting open with a hail of bullets. Then, real footsteps slow, echoing in the corridor outside, leather soles on tile. They stopped at our main door. A shadow fell under the crack, elongated and ominous. The knob turned, locked thankfully. A pause, then banging fists pounding rhythmically, shaking the frame. Open up, a voice called, calm, almost bored, with a hint of amusement. I just want to talk. It's important. Professor Lang signaled silence from his spot near the front, but a girl near him hyperventilated, breath ragged. The banging intensified, wood groaning, then stopped. Scratching at the keyhole, like picking the lock with a tool, metal on metal. My blood ran cold as the door creaked open an inch had Lang not secured it properly. Darkness poured in like ink, and a figure slipped through, silhouetted against the hall light. Tall, hooded, carrying something long rifle. It scanned the room, breathing heavily, a wheeze that filled the space. I pressed flat to the floor, peering over the seat edge, body trembling. It moved methodically, row by row, muttering to itself. Where are you? I know you're here. The ones who know too much. Kids stifled sobs, fabric rustling as they shifted. It reached the middle tier, pausing at a desk where a guy hid poorly, sneakers poking out. A hand shot out, grabbing his collar, hauling him up. A muffled scream, then silence, a thud, wet and final. Blood scent filled the air, metallic and coppery, turning my stomach. It continued, systematic, like it had a list, a purpose beyond random violence. I realized with mounting horror. The voice was familiar, the cadence of lectures I'd heard all semester. It was Professor Lang's voice, but he was still at the front, frozen in place, face ashen. The figure turned, hood falling back in a dramatic sweep. It was Lang, or a perfect replica, face twisted in rage, eyes wild. The real Lang gasped loudly, drawing its attention. It lunged, crossing the space in strides, and chaos broke, screams piercing the air, people bolting for side exits, chairs toppling. I ran too, heart exploding in my chest, out a side door into the hall, feet pounding, dodging shadows. Gunshots echoed behind, sharp cracks. I hid in a janitor's closet nearby, barricading the door with buckets and mops. Curling in the dark amid cleaning supplies, waiting for rescue, praying the duplicate didn't find me. SWAT cleared the building eventually, bursts of commands and footsteps. Official report: lone gunman. A former student with a grudge, killed in a shootout with police. But the twist that shattered everything. Security footage from the hall showed no intruder entering our auditorium. The shooter was Lang himself, captured on cam attacking students in a fugue state. Weapon a prop from the theater department, sharpened to lethality. Autopsy revealed a brain tumor pressing on his temporal lobe, causing hallucinations. But deeper digging by a curious reporter uncovered his twin brother, institutionalized for schizophrenia since childhood, escaped that day from a facility 50 miles away. The brother had impersonated him perfectly, down to the lecture notes in his pocket, the glasses, the droning voice. Or was it? Lang's body was found with 2 sets of fingerprints on the weapon, his own, overlapping impossibly, as if one hand held it twice. Some say it was dissociative identity disorder, amplified by the tumor, but I saw the eyes in that moment, one man's madness. Reflected twice, a revelation that the threat wasn't external, but a splintered self. Lockdown trapping us with the monster within. These stories, though separate, weave a tapestry of dread school walls that promise safety, but deliver the opposite. Lockdowns that lock in the horror rather than out. The atmosphere of waiting, the suspense of the unknown, builds to revelations that question reality itself. In the first, a ghost's unfinished business; the second, a curse made flesh; the third, a mind divided against itself. If you've ever sat in the dark, listening for the next sound, you understand the twist is always closer than you think, lurking in the mirror or the memory, waiting to emerge when the lights go out for good.